在3次连续2次都把自己的 LinkedIn 这个写错，写到2022年12月到期，改了2次都忘记改了。一个 agreement 最重要的是日期，而且他其他东西帮我弄好，这个日期帮我搞清。
真的好过分。
重要是20，他是5号的。
基本上都是现在这种情况。
所以我才好。
Hello. Wait, I can't hear you. You're on mute.
And now I am no longer muted.
Excellent.
Ah,
You're being recorded.
well, I appreciate that.
Okay. So I will show you the new dashboard.
Oh, sweet.
Which, oh no, let me use this other link, otherwise we get to the bear with me one moment, please. Let's see if this will work. Okay, so if you go on the updated, the new and improved dashboard, it has the goal initiatives. And if you click on the goal initiatives, you can go to each respective page of the goal. And ta-da! How's that looking? Right? No, now you're back on mute.
I keep muting and unmuting myself. So I actually found this the other day when I was doing some prep. So I did a Google search and I came across this page and I was thinking, oh, is this the piece that's in the works?
Wait, you weren't supposed to be able to see it. It was like
it was in the, what is it?
It was
box?
Unpublished.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh. Well, I saw something very much like this as a Google site.
Don't tell Christine. It's a big secret. No, it was just that we were working on it. So, so that was all done.
Oh, wow. This is looking good.
Okay, good. Yay.
So now is this live and ready for sharing, or is this?
This is totally live, and I just shared it with you. Hi,
okay.
Who joined us from 417? Is that Mary?
It is. Hi, Celia. How are you?
Good. How are you? I'm gonna rename you in the.
What are you gonna name me?
Just gonna type your name in. I'm kind of sitting with my back against the window, so I'm in silhouette because this is David, Hassan, and Jackie's call. Hi, Chad. Chad's on mute. Hello. How are things how are things down under?
Dark, early, and cold.
Oh, well, thank you so much for getting up to join us. My son is ending up in Australia in October, I think, for a month and a half or so, and then he'll be back at the end of December. But he's working his way down towards you, and he's kind of picking up workaway jobs and woofing. So he will be looking to work on organic farms. So if you have some organic farm contacts, let me know.
Yeah, I do actually. Send me some details.
Oh, okay, cool. I will connect you. That'll be great. And then I'm going to just play technical person and whoever's on 303. Let's see, 303, is that Jackie?
It's Jackie.
Okay, I will rename you in.
Awesome.
All right. Hey, Hassan, I met a bunch of people from Detroit. Is there a Dr. Bazzi? You're not a doctor, are you?
No.
Is there a Dr. Hassan Bazzi?
Not that I know of, but very likely.
Okay. It's a bunch of people that think they might know you. Does your wife work for the University of Michigan?
No, but she's from Ann Arbor. University of Michigan.
It's like I mentioned Hassan to people who mentioned Detroit, and they're like, oh, I think I've heard of him. So obviously, we have a celebrity in our midst.
So you and I will have to connect on who you talk to.
Yes, so you and I will talk. So I'm going to let Eric, Hassan, and Jackie lead the way that they're going to lead. And then, and I don't know why we don't see Jeff. Jeff's incognito. And it's not nearly as early for Jeff as it is for Chad.
So let's see. Make sure, yes, I love it when I'm not on mute. So yeah, to help kick things off. So this is really an exciting moment. So we are kind of moving forward this whole ESHIP goals work. And one of the aspects of that is kind of handing off or beginning to hand off a lot of the different activities that have been part of this work so far to the wider community to get more folks involved. So I think it's sort of fitting that the collaborative culture group is the first one to be having one of these calls. So everything's a draft. We'll be kind of working through that. One thing to help kick things off, I somehow had a technical problem because that's fun. Jackie or Hassan, can you get the collaborative culture? Can you share the link to that goal meetup agenda in the chat by any chance? And that'll get up here. Yes.
I think is that the right one?
I believe so.
Shared by Celia.
Awesome.
Good.
Perfect.
Okay.
Yes. So that includes, a little bit sort of housekeeping and stuff, and I expect we'll probably have a couple more people chime in. But this is sort of a standard goal meetup and agenda notes that the Kaufman team has helped put together to help keep these calls sort of on track. And also, I think, to help make it so that if you're participating in these different calls, so let's say you're interested in more than one topic, oh, sweet. There it is. For those of you who are not sharing the doc, there's Cecilia's screen. But to make it so that if you're involved with more than one of the goals, you're having basically a lot of the same experience. And that allows folks to plug in a fairly quick way. We're looking to have something of a similar agenda for most of the calls. And that's something that we're going to be learning. So we're going to be asking for your feedback later on in this session. So I'm one of the folks who's helping wrangle Goal 2. I'm joined by both Jackie and Hassan from the ESHIP Champs group. And as part of this, we'll kick this off, and what we'll do is we were scheduled to have a whole bunch of folks on the line. We don't have that many right now. So what I'd like to do is do the sort of traditional popcorn about how are you arriving today? And I was going to keep it to just maybe 1 to 3 words. So my words are excited, nervous, and just kind of awestruck by this whole thing. So Jackie, if you wouldn't mind, any words that come to your mind?
Sure, Jackie in Denver at the Commons. I'm just eager to see this take shape, and the meetup idea is awesome.
And what we do, actually everyone who's on the call right now has been part of the calls, is we do the little popcorn thing.
So Hassan.
Sorry guys, I'm having some technical difficulties. My keyboard's not working, so I have to use the tablet. So I'm a little slow. Actually, I was thinking the exact same thing that Eric was, excited and nervous at the same time. So I guess I will go over to Chad.
Yeah, you bet. So here from Australia, where we're doing some good stuff, building the ecosystem down here. I guess the words would be interested and keen to support, and how can I help?
Let's see, and I'm not sure if you could see, so we've got also Mary is also on the line along with Cecilia.
And Jeff.
Oh yeah, and Jeff, I'm sorry, I just see the name there. Okay.
Chad, you get to popcorn up to someone.
Oh, excellent. We'll go Jeff.
I think he said Jeff. So incognito, auditing, curious, and Mary. Go, Mary.
I am super excited about movement and being a part of the group, and I am exhausted today. That is how I'm arriving. It's literally exhausted. I have a huge conference this week, so I'm here. I'm here. Jeff, you're there. This goes to you.
I just went. I threw it over to you.
And we've also got Cecilia. So Cecilia's, and I'm not sure if there's other folks.
Cecilia.
Let's see. Oh, good.
Okay.
Is Cecilia the only one left?
Well, yes. So I will say live from New York, which is where I am currently. So welcome. And we will take responsibility for the fact that there aren't a whole mass of people on the calls. There was an ESHIP newsletter that was supposed to go out to the general populace to remind them of these new call cadences, and that did not get sent. We're hoping that that gets sent out tomorrow, but actually we really like kind of the fact that it's a smaller group and people that have been on the calls, so it's easier to test out. So that's all I've got. Back to you, Eric.
It sounds like we might be having a little bit of feedback. So one thing this allows us to do, so if you'll go down on that list, it looks like we've got a bunch of folks who are in the the agenda and notes. If you go down that list, we've got the agenda is posted. We've got a couple different ways that we've talked about taking notes. One of the things we want to try and balance is we want to get input from the wider community, have a chance to have their voices, but we also don't want to have. Sometimes when I take notes, I'm like, okay, I disconnect totally from the conversation and just sort of in listen and capture mode versus participation mode. And we want to try and make sure that folks have an opportunity to participate. You know, if that's why they came to the call. Sometimes folks will say, you know, I love being the note taker. Let me take a step back and I'll do that. But we want to give a chance for folks to participate in the way that they want to participate. So one thing, since most folks actually have it up, I know we also have, I think, another doc that we might be running behind the scenes, but we could try, if a couple of folks want to take some notes, there's a block further down on that page beneath the agenda for call notes. And what we're looking for, if folks are willing to do it, is we're looking for not necessarily, we don't need a verbatim capture of the call because we are in fact recording the call. But if there are different things that really jump out to you, something that you think is especially important that we all remember, to jog, you know, our memory or yours, I'd invite you to add those to the call notes. Do we have anyone who's interested in helping out with that?
Can I share something, Eric, while while you're doing this? So some of you, well, many of you are familiar with the ESHIP dashboard that we were creating so that we could better align visibility with what's going on. So I'm going to share the new and improved dashboard. And the dashboard itself is this page with information. But if you can see up on top, what we've done is, thanks to primarily to Christine's tech savvy magic, each of the goals has its own page now, and storytelling also has a page. And if we'll click on the collaborative culture, you will see all of the things that are collaborative culture. Here is the goal definition. This is how somebody would sign up for the calls. These are the initiatives under the prioritized initiatives under each goal. There is the current project canvases, which we will be working on uploading a template of that. And then will be able to put in, like, if there's a group that's working on 2.1, that they will put their contact information, and you'll be able to see this project canvas. And then call recordings will actually go here. So right now, what it is just a one-liner, a heading for the videos, as well as the length of time of the videos, what was discussed, and the number of participants, the names of the participants that were on the calls, so that it kind of looks like Netflix when you're looking on the episodes. These are the episodes of the ESHIP Champion goal calls. So all of that will be uploaded and each respective page. So I'm going to stop sharing, and I will put the link back in the chat so that you have if you don't have it bookmarked, it's right here. And then I'm turning it back to Eric. So.
And I think, so I'll just say that's big news. This is kind of huge for those of us who've been kind of thinking, oh, how do we make sure that we're aware of all the different things that are going on with the different calls? So this is kind of the beginning of that general update. So a couple of things that Cecilia already mentioned. So the newsletter and the information that's going out to the wider public, folks who've been participating, whether they attended ESHIP or they've been signing up for the newsletter or otherwise engaging, they're now being invited in to participate in these calls, where it was sort of in the past, you might have been invited because you were part of ESHIP or you knew someone else who had invited you in. This is now kind of ramping up and spreading out to involve more ESHIP or ecosystem builders from around the world. So that's pretty fantastic. So news, I love it. Do we have any other general updates that we need to share at this time? And that might be it. Those are two pretty big things. So the next thing we were going to do, so we're walking through the agenda, the general agenda. Oh, I see someone's putting something in. I love it. So the next step is the project teams. So we don't, let's see, I'm actually not totally familiar with the folks who've been participating with all of the different projects that are part of Goal 2. But I have been part of the first one, which is the regional ESHIP convenings that Jackie's been playing a role in. Jackie, can you share maybe just a little bit as far as what we've been talking about on that?
On Goal 2.1, there is an emerging concept around the regional convenings that would help to recreate and make ESHIP more accessible at both the regional level and as well as to more ecosystem builders. And I think where we're at is really in a stage of taking discussion from the past ESHIP along with people who've been giving input along the way and really being able to coalesce those ideas into a project canvas that we can make available on the goal dashboard so that more people can see that living document and really what we have in mind, as well as starting to track some of the organizations that might have an interest in participating in, possibly hosting or contributing to a convening along those lines. So I think there's still some question, and one of the exciting things about these meetup groups is just simply being able to identify, where there might be a resource that might allow those regional ESHIP Summit, that concept to at least take off in a piloted format that would allow for development of the toolkit and, possibly have more of a product that would emerge over time. So I think it's really very much a, how do we test these and pilot something that would help to really test the case that this is a viable opportunity and something that is in demand in the way that we believe it is. So I think this call is very much an opportunity just to see where there might be additional support, people who want to get involved, or people that might want to, fit into certain phases of that project. But really, I think we could be in position for the time this call comes around next to really have started drafting a true canvas, utilizing so much of the work that's already been contributed by folks from ESHIP and that have been working on it in the meantime. Is there anything, Eric or Hassan, that you want to add to where we're really at on that step?
No, I think you pretty much covered it, Jackie.
Yeah, I think you did a real good job of covering it. And also, since we've got, typically when we're doing this, I think down the line, if we've got a full agenda, we might not get into a lot of discussion during this part of it. There'll be separate calls and separate ways for the different teams to work together. But since we do have not a huge group, I think if we've got any sort of questions about that project, maybe we can get those out now. Any questions?
Sure. So the whole concept of regional ESHIP summits, regional engagements, it's pretty big in Australia. We're a regional nation, pretty spread out. One of the things I've been thinking about doing is, like originally when I took the role for the Global Entrepreneurship Network here for Australia, I had an idea for essentially an ESHIP summit in Australia. But as we all know, organizing one of those is pretty huge. But so doable, but I was thinking more of a virtual type approach and thinking, much like we have a call here today, I've seen bigger ones, like how big can we get something like this and how structured can you get a virtual type session? You don't quite get the same engagement as you do, obviously, with everybody being in the same room. But is there also I guess a supplement to a physical presence where you've got a virtual type summit? And you can actually make a big deal of it. Maybe have, 4 a year, lower cost, higher engagement. People don't have to travel as much. You get your speakers and even get more international speakers who quite often would come by video anyways, even if you aren't a physical presence, much like we had Feld at the very first ESHIP Summit. So I am playing with that. I'd love your thoughts on how you structure that and how you get something like that spun up.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we have the answers right now to how the idea of a virtual, but I love the idea that we could integrate that into this concept. Certainly, the idea that you might be able to have shorter or smaller commitments in terms of people being able to participate, and then also do you keep that like a regional type of focus? Or does that become something that is more encompassing around the goals that are out there now and whatever phase we're in as an ESHIP community? Eric, what are your thoughts on, you've been thinking about this longer than I have for certain, on the virtual component. Have you seen that happening in other places?
Let's see. I mean, I'll say it's been on my mind, but it hasn't been part of the main part of my thinking about this kind of topic. But as this is a pretty big state with a small population. So it's definitely thinking about those kinds of options makes a lot of sense. I'm always interested in kind of what's that balance. And I think that's part of what we're doing with this session or with this group is you're trying to build collaboration, you're trying to build culture. To some extent, I think that it helps to have people meeting face to face and being really with each other. But to a different degree, keeping those bonds and helping continue to develop them, we can't force and we can't afford to have people come together all the time. So I love the idea. I'm interested in seeing what you've done and how that might work with this topic.
I will say I have seen a cool model that was on a statewide summit where they coordinated local convenings. So at the city level, maybe groups of 12 to 20 people who gathered in one location, but then all of those locations tuned in at one time to share in conversations or keynote speakers and so on, and then could kind of continue at their local level with certain agendas and things like that, which I've seen that done effectively. So that might be something to consider too, is how the regional levels or those local nodes can still convene, but then plug into a bigger conversation.
I have to say, I love that. Was that in Colorado, or can you share where that was?
Yeah, it's actually, there's a couple, we did it here with our International Women's Entrepreneurship Day. And then it was one of our committee members who had experienced that on another convening that she was working on. So she was able to bring that experience to the table when we put that together.
That's awesome. Any other comments, questions? Awesome. We're still on schedule, sort of. Now, I don't know if there's anybody on the line actually who has been part of the other projects within this group. So just in case, is there anyone out there who's been part of this, the Field Ambassador Training Program or the training and tools for building collaborative culture? And we might have participated in a couple different conversations, but I'm not totally sure who's actually, if there's someone who's been a champion sort of leading those efforts. And hearing none, we may move on. So the other part that's that we've been talking about having as part of these different calls on a regular basis is some kind of regular or scheduled activity, a combination of curated content, and that could be a speaker, it could be a panel, it could be a discussion to help move things forward. So to help develop that or help go in that direction, there's a couple different questions that I put into, and this is what they were phrasing as sort of a community call structure for this call. Since we're toward the beginning, we wanted to get a better sense of the folks who are involved and kind of what brings you here to the call today. So that's the question I'll ask. What's important to you or your organization about this goal? And what are you hoping to get out of maybe not just this call today, but to these calls in the future? And anyone who wants to take it can take it.
And I'll just say ecosystem building is all about collaboration. So this is at the core of everything that we're doing in all of the goals. It's very important to get people to work together and collaborate. And I think that's the perspective I'm coming from.
Yeah, I'll hop in. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, how do we get us all working together? Not just locally, nationally, globally. How do we connect these whole concepts of summits? We're all working towards the same page. It is locally contextual, but we're all, as we even see by this, the goals around the ESHIP, we all face common challenges. And the three initiatives in particular, how do we get these convenings, these summits happening and connecting those? How do we get training programs going, train the trainer type models to make the training sustainable? And also what kind of tools can we share as we develop these things? How do we not just do once bespoke and keep recreating the wheel, but kind of build on each other's successes, share that knowledge so that when somebody comes from after us, they'll be able to do it so much faster and better than we did it even now.
I don't want to put words in Jeff's mouth, but I'll mention something that might be related to him and some others. So one thing that we recognize that folks, they might have one or two really main priorities, but they also recognize that there are other goals that are very much complementary. So some of us I know plan to be part of other calls. So I'm very interested in Goal 5, but it's not something I'm necessarily working on right at this moment. But I'm curious at how it intersects with both this and the inclusive culture piece for Goal 1. So that's one reason why I'm part of these groups. And I'm wondering, Jeff, is this your home, or are you attending mostly because you want to know how to do the storytelling related to this?
So it's twofold. Why I'm here today is number one, the main thing is, as the leader of the storytelling call, I want to, and storytelling cuts across all the goals, so I want to be able to have a better sense for what's going on in each of the goals. I haven't really been lately, except for Goal 4. So I just kind of want to get a sense of what's going on, who the team is, what people are doing, how far along initiatives are, that kind of thing. So basically just auditing and listening in on that to mainly identify, is there something that storytelling can do to help spread the word, if you will, about Goal 2 and its initiatives. And then the other thing is, like you said, well, I've got to do this next week, so let's see how Eric did it, and Eric and Son and Jackie do it, so I can have a good idea. Does that make sense? Hello, was I on mute?
Oh,
No,
I'm on mute. You're doing great. I was just
Okay.
I was typing instead of trying to talk, but no, that's perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Let's see, Mary, anything you want to share about? So, what brings you here today? How can this goal help you and your work?
So I do a lot of ecosystem building within my local community, and trying to increase awareness of local resources as well as state and national. It's been sort of a goal of mine to help build my local ecosystem and get others on board. And so by being a part of ESHIP, and especially with collaborative culture within my community, it's got a very diverse political spectrum that leans definitely more right. And it's very religious. So you have to bring together a lot of groups with very opposing ideologies. So for me, it's a really good opportunity to be a part of the group forming this so that I can bring it back to my community and really help provide a framework that can be sustainable and utilized by the community long after I'm gone, hopefully. That's why I'm here.
I'm always inspired by being on these calls with y'all folks. It's great. And I think sort of that helps, or might help segue into kind of the next question, which is one of the things we're trying to do, I think, with this, and when I see, or at least when I think about how I'm participating in other calls, there's two things that I'm looking for related to those other calls. And that's partially, one is, how can we make the work, or how can I help share the voice or wear the hat about more collaboration and that culture of collaboration and bring that to other projects and goals. So that's one of the reasons why I'm interested in participating in as many other goals as I can, is to see, maybe there's some way that we can help, play that note or emphasize how important that is. I think also on these different calls, or on this call specifically, one of the things we really want to try to do is model how can we be more collaborative? How can we get folks thinking and working more collaboratively so that the folks who come in here and maybe they listen to a speaker or they participate in some discussion, they can bring that back to their work. So, thinking about how do you work with, varied folks across the political spectrum or what have you, I think is really, really important. So thanks, Mary. Anything?
Wait, I'm sorry, were you asking how that happens?
Well, yeah, sure. Actually, that's great.
I think a lot of the way that I do it is I simply ignore it. And basically tell people that entrepreneurship is not politically divided, and that, so for instance, I'm hosting a women's conference. Well, I'm not hosting, SCORE's hosting, I'm leading the planning team. We have Senator Blunt coming in as our closing keynote speaker, who actually reached out to us to come and present. That's highly controversial in some ways, because I don't have a Democratic candidate, or, well, we don't have any Democratic senators right now. But, it's very much, we couldn't publicize him until this week because we didn't want protesters at the conference, for instance. But for me, it's a lot of very clear lines drawn. So it's like, okay, what do you want to talk about? Here are the things you're allowed to talk about. Here are the things you're not. And then as far as promotion, it's just, this is not a political event. It's a really good opportunity to get some photo opportunities. And I don't care if we're on completely opposite sides of the spectrum. It's still pretty cool to get to meet a U.S. Senator. Mm-hmm. So I think I don't know, I think I just ignore it. I pretend like it doesn't exist, like there isn't a political divide. Everybody should get along no matter what. And somehow that works for me, like most of the time. I don't know. That's like the stupidest answer ever, but it's really what I do.
I don't think it's stupid at all. I think, sometimes sometimes we have the time and capacity to, facilitate something, like the Wellington crew and boy, what's the other name of the group that works with Kaufman? Those folks are fantastic, and they've got these great teams that do facilitation and supporting these different events all the time. Sometimes as ecosystem builders, it's, you and maybe one other person or a couple of folks that are volunteers, and you're making it happen. So I think recognizing, how much capacity you have in order to help do those things is an important thing. So you do the best with what you can. Yeah. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
I would add to that the work that Jeff is doing just through the Ecosystem Builder newsletter. I think to be collaborative, just being interested in other people's ideas, programs, initiatives, et cetera, and having that newsletter as a constant reminder to be paying attention to what other people are working on and how other people are approaching things has made me better at remembering to ask other people about their ideas, about ways to contribute, about how they've accomplished things. So I really appreciate that storytelling effort, and I love the way that it supports across all the goals in that way.
Yes, I definitely agree. That's big.
I'll
Any other?
pop in and just say thank you, Jack. I appreciate that.
I thought I was typing. Yeah, I thought I was typing in the document that I was typing in the chat window. So hey, great, learning how to do that. Let's see, other things that we think about when we're putting out the announcement about this call. Some of maybe the storytelling, different venues. How can we do a better job of trying to bring more folks in to make this some more collaborative effort around building this collaborative community? And any additional thoughts on all that?
I guess I have a question on that. So you're asking how to bring more people in. I have a question. Has it been a challenge to get people engaged in this goal and doing field level goal 2 work? Anybody?
Yeah, so just from what I've seen or thought, I am not really knowing that some of these different platforms and tools and all that were going to come online, at some point, and now they're here. Haven't been inviting a lot of people into. Every once in a while, I think I post on the ESHIP Facebook group. I think I might have thrown something on Slack, but I haven't done a lot of, sort of proselytizing or evangelizing this to the outside world. I think now we can start doing that, but I know I haven't, so I'm not sure if other folks have.
So I have a question for Chad. What prompted you to get involved in this call? So just an idea from someone who may not have been involved in other calls in the past. What prompted you to get involved now? And
yeah, you bet. In Parks, I'm practically doing the work. So I'm setting up regional ESHIP summits, and like there's a co-working space that has a virtual membership model that's setting up monthly phone conversations, and you see all these things happening in pockets. But how do we do it collectively better together? And a whole bunch of people running around doing the train-the-trainer models, and everyone's doing feasibility studies on how you set up a hub and how do you train local ecosystem leaders. But it all happens just in these isolated pockets. So how do we do it together? One of the other things going on in the last conversation is how you cut through kind of the political things. And politics in Australia is just so different than the US. Like, we're various shades of gray as compared to some of the polarizing narratives we have in the US. But still, it is all just about the outcome. It's about action and outcome. So the outcome is we're fundamentally transforming lives through entrepreneurship for everybody in the community, which means we need everybody involved. We need programs for Indigenous, we need programs for females, programs for youth, programs for older people. We need them around the table. So that's part of the cut through on how we create collaboration, just through making sure that we include everybody. And also just outcomes and action. Because people that, when they see momentum, and you'll get your detractors, but value trumps everything. If you're producing value in your community, that kind of overrides a lot of the political stuff, because people say, yeah, but I don't like the look of that person. Yeah, but they're actually kind of doing good things, getting good outcomes. Remember that event we had. Remember when they brought everybody together for that summit. And that tends to cut through, but it's a bit of a longer play because it gets easy to get caught up in the he she said thing. And so my reason for being in part of the call is, one, to see some practical outcomes within some of the initiatives that are in this particular goal, and just to learn from other people on how they're doing it and share whatever we're doing here to make it better.
Yeah, that's great. That's perfect. Let's see, other questions. So the other question that we had is, we're looking to get different kinds of content for future calls. Do folks have recommendations for either speakers or topics that we want to cover, or panels? What are folks kind of gravitating towards in order to help ecosystem builders like yourself learn more about building more collaborative cultures within their communities, and also really across the board? I'm wondering if we've got some good suggestions out there.
Well, maybe if we had people that were actually doing some of these things. So if there's somebody who has set up a regional summit or gotten people together, just having them come in and say, so what was that experience like? What'd you learn? What wouldn't you do again? If we have organizations out there that are doing train the trainer models, or they're creating some good tool sets, can they come in and say, well, this is what it's like, and here's how we can share what's being done. Like, how do we progress the initiatives, find out what's working, find out what's not, so that when we're doing similar kind of things, we can make it better. And potentially people from, like, definitely across the US, but find out what's happening in Canada or Europe or a few other places as well. Just get some speakers in there just for a quick 15 minutes, just to learn from other regions.
So I'm having a conference, like I said, on Thursday. I'm definitely willing to get some feedback back to you guys on which of the breakout sessions more people attended, sort of what they were more interested in as entrepreneurs, as well as exhibitors. That we have a really wide range of all of that. So I'd be happy to sort of say, just from that one day, that one experience, sort of what I saw.
And Mary, I mean, that'd be great, because in addition to that, like even, what do you consider when you bring your, like, maybe a bit of an event in a box type of thing? Because one of the things in concepts is these ecosystem leaders, we're asking them to be event coordinators and organizers and mentors and facilitators and all these other things. So even some of the basics of a bit of a checklist and run sheet, creating a bit of that toolkit for what you've experienced. That would be fantastic.
And I'll just say, I know on the regional ESHIP, for the different groups that were taking place at ESHIP, at the ESHIP Summit, there was one version which was very much kind of maybe the larger summit kind of approach. And I was part of that conversation. The other groups, so there were two groups working at the same time. The other one was definitely going down the road of kind of ESHIP in a box. What are the basics you need? What are all the different emails and things that you need to send to people so that you can get that thing launched, so that the ecosystem builder doesn't necessarily have to be the all-in-all event coordinator or something like that, but they've got the tools at their hands to help make that happen. So I love that too.
Well, do we have a timeline on when that might be released?
I know, and this question might be for Cecilia, as far as when those different canvases might come up. I know that I've got actually photos and a Google Doc that have the breakdown of what those different groups shared, but I only have it for the regional ESHIP. I don't have it for the other projects that were a part of this call. But I can share this. Chad, are you in the Slack for this kind of discussion as well? Sweet. I'll put it over there. And Jeff, I think you were going to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just starting to type. So it just occurred to me the event in a box thing. Techstars, I'm sure most people here are familiar. Startup Weekend, they have a great event in a box. They have a great template of schedule and what you need to do and all that kind of thing to put on local Startup Weekend events. And I'm wondering if somebody from Techstars might be a good person who's in charge of developing that or managing it, might be a good person to bring in and kind of share best practices for building a event in a box kind of a template.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. And I guess kind of everything in a box. Like obviously we can't automate this stuff too much, but from hackathons to major events to I guess we're talking about setting up these regional summits and how do we equip and train ecosystem leaders. Maybe one of the outcomes of these kind of conversations is slowly building that repository if one doesn't exist, or if one does, then we just find a way to point at it. But just create a bit of a toolkit set that when other people come along, we can just point them to that.
So I know that what is it, the kind of the event in a box or the support stuff that Techstars has put together for Startup Weekend and Startup Week they're definitely part of my thinking when I look at the regional ESHIP stuff. But how do folks think about maybe getting one or two of those folks to join us on some future call and talk about how they developed that or how they fleshed out that platform so it became really, really usable, and how do they continue to refine it? I think that might help us kind of know how to help our own roadmap for going down this road.
I think that's a great idea. I think the more hands at the table who are doing different things and have a unique perspective, the more we can build this effectively, especially if they're really doing it already. Eric, let's start.
And that the Global Entrepreneurship Network as well. I'm just hopping into that as far as the role, so I'll tap into there as well just to see. There's a few people in there. I know the tech guy, but see if there's somebody in there specifically around events. They might be a good speaker as well.
I think about the train the trainer concept as well. Is there anything that comes to mind that would be good subject matter expertise?
Yeah, there's a guy over here in Australia. We've got this program called Startup On-Ramp, which is now being funded by multiple state governments, which is a 12-week early stage accelerator type course. And what he does, he gets people in for 2 days intensive, he calls them briefing, because some ecosystem leaders don't like the concept of being trained on stuff they already know, but he briefs them on the 12 slides and the conversations you need to have, and then gets them back out there, and he's creating a community among those facilitators. He's got, I think, about 20 set up at the moment across Australia.
Oh.
So just
what was the name of it?
Startup On-Ramp. I'll send a link to it.
Cool.
Excellent. Well, I don't know that, let's see. So I don't necessarily need to keep any folks longer. It feels like we've covered a fair amount of ground. Are there any other sort of questions or things, burning questions, thoughts, things that we want to share before we close up today? Thanks, Chad.
Eric, do you have a good sense for, with where we're at right now, if we want to, for example, if we had a project canvas that we were wanting to open up for other people's feedback or ideas, are we continuing to build that over Slack, or what's the best way for anyone that's interested in those goals or the sub-goals to be sharing that information out with them?
I'm not sure that I have a great plan. I think for what we've seen, and Jeff might be able to weigh in this, or Cecilia, I think some of the projects that are moving further faster have gotten kind of a small team together that's really intensely interested in making that happen, and kind of taken that out of that major or the wider discussion, do the work on the side, and then bring that back together. So one of the things that this call is supposed to do is basically, it's sort of a touch point for folks who are interested in that topic, but they're not necessarily, either they don't have the capacity or whatever to participate in that, that really fundamental work, to participate all the time, but to keep abreast of things. So bring that out of this and into its own project team, that's something we haven't really done. We had a couple of calls on that 2.1, but we haven't really done that in terms of with the intensity that, say, goal 4, where I think some of the storytelling's gone. I'm not sure, Jeff, if you've got any tips.
No, not really. I think it's just, a lot of it's just, you need somebody who's just really interested and passionate about something to kind of take the ball and run with it, and kind of be obsessed with it. And it sounds to me like in goal 2 anyway, 2.1, the summits is probably the furthest along. So I'm not hearing a lot of, like, there's been much done around 2.2, 2.3. So, I'm thinking if there's somebody in the ESHIP community that is just obsessed and passionate about building training programs, if we identifying that person and getting them excited to take that on, for example, would be the thing to do next, I would think. Are there project briefs written up for 2.2 and 2.3?
I believe that there were. I could have sworn that I've looked at them at some different points, and they were discussed also at the summit. But I just kind of popped over and kind of glanced at it, so I don't have a deep knowledge of that, or if there are folks who are really leading that forward.
I think it's really just comes down to somebody who, goal 5 in Norris is another great example. Somebody who's just obsessed with the metrics and the quantitative methods. It's just finding somebody who's just obsessed with something and actually also has some time to put into it. I think identifying that person to take charge of an initiative is key.
So I'll just, my internet is like really bad here, but I just want to chime in if you can hear me and let you know that we're working on how to share all those project canvases and what format to put them in. So some of that discussion I think will take place for the most part with ESHIP champions next week as to the best way that we can share the information without the contacts and the information with the contacts, because it's just really challenging. I want to be mindful of not putting everyone's email addresses out on the internet. And so trying to navigate how do we best connect people and give visibility and alignment without compromising people's security and email inboxes and all that stuff. So so just so you know, we are working on it, and probably time for a deeper discussion next week with some of the people that have been actively playing a field-wide role. So just so you know that.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that I don't know, maybe it feels like it's more of a challenge coming out of this group is, to the extent that we want to try to model this ability to be very collaborative, that's, I don't know if personally, if I've been leaning more towards, well, we need to get more input or we need to invite more people into whatever project team. So that's not necessarily the way to make things faster. But I think as long as we're thoughtful about how we, let's say if we were to kick off some kind of a sprint on this in the next couple of weeks, making sure that there's at least some invite out there so folks do have an opportunity, if they're interested, to get involved, I think would be something that I'd like to see and would definitely work towards helping make happen. But that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, so I'm just from my perspective, I'm happy to help and contribute. Time is a real issue for me, but within like as far as bringing other people on board, I think also just I guess as we share the outcomes, that might attract people as well who would be interested in it. I mean, it sounds like some of the outcomes from this conversation. One is bringing somebody in, a couple of people in to present at our next one, which that in itself might open up some networks, whether it's somebody from Techstars, call in from an actual program, maybe somebody from Gen, we can look at reaching those. I'm happy to do the intro to Colin. If somebody else wants to do the Techstars. And 2, if we start creating a bit of a repository for all the in-a-box type stuff for ecosystem building, just to kind of maybe do a market scan to see what's out there. And I guess 3, I am debating whether I do an actual physical nationwide ecosystem builders summit in February, and or just start kick off some of these virtual ones. And I'm happy to document the journey as I go and share kind of build and practice as we go. If there's anybody else who's doing similar kind of work, happy to work with them.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm
Thank you. That's
extremely
great.
interested to see how you're doing that. I would love to hear more about that as you get closer to it and all that jazz.
Well, and maybe the call that we do after that, you can you either in the prep calls or one of the calls that's after that, it'd be great to get kind of a recap, lessons learned and stuff.
Cool. I think you're on mute, Eric.
I keep doing that. I'm bad about muting myself. So one of the things I wanted to, so we've got just a couple of minutes left. Are there any, I think we've covered most of the burning stuff. Any follow-up, Jackie, any thoughts? Did we give you some information, or I think we probably need to grab the folks who are interested and kind of do another little huddle on that as well. But what are you thinking right now?
Sure. No, I just am generally interested in how, in the spirit of collaboration, we have those systems that allow for us to, reach out and let people know, especially just what we need when there's expertise or the type of feedback that we're looking for. If, is Slack the best way to do that? Is there just a small group of people? Is it using these meetups? I just keep thinking that there are like really specific asks that would be nice to have a way to put those out into the community and have them received in a meaningful way that we can really leverage each other's resources and kind of mobilize the network in that way. Just interested in getting the best possible outcome for the effort that's going into so many of these initiatives.
That's great.
And it sounds like it's still starting to take shape. So
it's good timing. Good timing.
Thank you.
I'm going to call on Hassan because I just want to see what he's thinking about stuff.
I actually just ended up taking a lot of notes.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just couldn't type them in because, like I said, for some reason my keyboard is disconnected from my screen, so I'm having to use the screen to actually type. So I'll actually transfer them over into an electronic form. I think actually this was think we got some good feedback from Chad. Interesting thoughts. Just thinking about who else, who would make sense to bring in for future calls, and I like the ideas that Chad brought up. And I'll type this stuff and I'll send it out. But that's where my head's at.
So we've got 1 or 2 minutes left. We don't have to necessarily use them, but would anybody like to share a word of how they're leaving this call and what's their word for this week?
Hungry. Because it's lunchtime.
Persevere. I'm going to make it through this week and the month of August.
Yeah, full on, and getting ready to go for my morning run.
Nice. I'll pop in here and say diligence. There's a lot of work to do, and it's a lot of just being focused on doing the work and being diligent about it.
Well, I appreciate all of you and all your energy. So grateful.
I'm not sure if we've got a word from Jackie. We don't necessarily need one. We got a couple words from you.
I'm optimistic, but my word for the week is action.
Ah, yes.
Ah, yeah.
And Hassan, did we get anything? Are you anything you want to leave us with? You've got the last note.
Oh, I hate not to sound pessimistic, but for some reason it just hit me today. Like I've always had this thing in my head from when I was a kid that summer in my head like always ends like right after July 4th. And I just realized got just a couple more weeks left in August. So lots to do before we turn into September.
I'm definitely feeling that. So I want to thank everyone for participating. This is where we're still, I don't necessarily working the bugs out, but trying to refine this process. So thanks to Cecilia and the team for, I really love that new document, and really appreciate everyone signing up. Showed up early. I'm pointing to you, Chad. Man, the timing on this has got to be rough. But I appreciate everyone showing up today and bringing your full selves, and looking forward to having a lot more great conversations with you and other ecosystem builders. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Eric.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody. Good job, Eric.